The following call is designed to inform and entertain, not provide medical advice. Always consult your doctor when it comes to your personal health before starting any new treatment. Above all, a very, very physical disease. And, first, whenever we talk about what we're trying to do when we're solving the problem of Lyme, we want to say, at the core, what are we really trying to do? We're trying to manipulate our cells. And, it is your cells that are actually sick. So it is the organ cells of the body. It is the connective tissue of the body. It is the muscles of the body. And those little spirochetes are going to drill their way into all those little areas, all the nooks and crannies. They're going to get in there. And they're going to be trying very, very hard to evade the immune system. But also then when you put anything antibacterial in, they're going to try their hardest to evade that. So they're going to, really shrivel up and create either a shell around themselves, or they are going to try to get in those nooks and crannies where the actual antibacterial stuff can't get to. So when I say they can't get to that, when you take your antibiotics, or whether it's anything, the colloidal silver, a lot of stuff, it cannot saturate into restricted areas. And when you talk about restrictions, the body is made of very many layers. So when we look on the outside, of course, we can see the skin. But what we miss a lot of times is right below the skin, there's literally like a super highway for bacteria, virus, things like that to move through. And that is called the fascia. And the fascia is responsible for being able to move over the muscles, okay? So the bugs, bacteria, whatever it may be, will go and move through those. And when we take the antibiotics, we're saturating all of the areas within our body, but a lot of times it requires blood flow. So antibiotics a lot of time will require blood flow into a specific area to really, really saturate that area with the antibacterials and kill off all of the bacteria. In theory, this is why I think some things like oregano oil, because of how strong they are, they permeate sometimes. Why it's such a good antibacterial is it permeates sometimes into the muscles. And it is, if you ever even put a drop or two of oregano oil into a cup, that cup is going to stink until you wash it 3 or 4 times. So having said that, that is just one of the treatments that, can permeate a little bit deeper. But as I mentioned, right, the actual talk is on the physical regimens. And whenever it comes to physical regimens, really to move the body and try to assure that it lines up correctly, like whenever you were young, after being bombarded with Lyme and these Lyme toxins, it is really an art. And for me, the first tool that was always the go-to was literally my hands. So when it comes to physical regimens, I'm going to tell you about the types of things that I used, but number one would be my hands. So for me, I had Bartonella really bad, and the feet and the legs were definitely the worst. And what really helped me was when I started to look at like these apps that show the physio of the body, all of the different muscles and how they move. And why that's so important is a lot of times when you have a die-off, the neurotoxins are very heavy and they just basically fall, into the legs. The Bartonella lives there anyway, but they fall into the legs, and it is very, very hard to get them out. So when you're working with your hands, you want to work with your hands on your legs, even if it's not Bartonella, even if it's regularly Lyme disease, just to keep those muscles open. And so it's important to see, how many muscles are there in the leg? Am I going to work the right side of my quad the left side of my quad? Am I going to work the underside of my hamstring, my right side, my left side? And then it's also important, what happens with Lyme very often is that those muscles will get stuck together. So that's when really understanding that physio part of this comes into really into effect. One of the biggest and most beneficial treatments for me was actually, I would put my, I don't know if you can you see if I'm sitting like this? Can you see my legs?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the most beneficial treatments was for me to take my hand with a pincher grip. And of course, my legs felt like they were on fire at the time. And I would walk up the back of my Achilles, squeezing these areas to get blood flow into them until right here where you end the Achilles and you hit your calf muscles. Now there's two calf muscles, there's not one. So what you want to do then is use like a pincher grip to go up the side of the calves. And on the outside, you basically take your other hand and you have to go like this. And it is hard if you do not have that flexibility. So sometimes you have to maneuver, you have to try it in bed. You have to try different angles while you're in bed to be able to get into those areas and use your hands. So what happened though was my hands would get very, very tired, and I wasn't able to do longer term treatments. And of course, it would have been better, right, if you could always have a massage therapist or something on hand, but right, that's not realistic. So I had to come up with just different tools. And when you don't have a lot of money, it is something where you have to just come up with stuff. So I had read, I had bilateral plantar fasciitis. So the bottoms of my feet were very, very tight and on fire. I had read something online. This isn't something that I came up with, but the frozen bottle would do the trick. So you would put water into a bottle. For me, I found out that the 32-ounce Gatorade bottles were by far the best. So I would fill it up with water, an empty bottle, put it in the freezer, allow it to freeze. Now, why the Gatorade bottle was so good is it has these ridges on the bottom. And I would roll my feet over that frozen bottle. And even if you do not have foot pain, the feet and the legs, the quads, the hips, those are going to be the foundation of your entire body. So to start working from the top down is not realistic. You have to keep that lower body open if it's going to be able to hold your weight, and if you're going to be able to get antibiotics in there. And even after you hit the antibiotics, now you're going to have all of these neurotoxins in there that we have to clear out. So the blood flow is extremely important. Keeping these avenues open, extremely, extremely important. So the first one would be the Gatorade bottle. Roll your toes over. And very often, as you are more sedentary or wear the wrong shoes, right now, everyone wears pointy toe shoes. It's like the most uncomfortable thing in the world. I don't know how people do it, but you have to, really have to pay attention to your feet, and you have to pay attention that your toes aren't overlapping and coming together, because it will literally ruin your knees, ruin your hips, and make healing that much harder. So what you do is you could either get toe separators, or you literally get your fingers in between those toes and just stick your fingers between the toes, allowing your foot to open, becoming more aware of your feet. If you become more aware of your feet, they have the most nerves. I guess the hands and the feet have the most nerves in the entire body. It will create that awareness, connect the brain to the feet, which goes through the legs, and keep that blood flowing, which is just incredibly important. I had to figure it out the hard way, as I lost most use of my feet, my legs. Like I always tell her when I was begging my doctors to cut my legs off, surrendered to life in a wheelchair, and got it all back. I run around with my kids like crazy. But whenever it comes to the feet, also, one of the things that I started off with, and this is something that anybody can do, regardless of how much money you have. I found these at Ollie's, which is like this discount bargain store, $3.99. If you can't afford an ionic foot bath, which is what you really you should be doing, if you can, these ionic foot pads, they pull the toxins out while you sleep. So that no matter what, the goal has to be is we pay so much attention to supplements, but there's a completely another half. We're doing our supplement regimens. We're so worried about, whether we're taking our antioxidants with food or not food, or, what time we're going to take our minerals and things like that. If you take them, it's better than not taking them. That's always for sure. But the vast majority of your time, at least that 50% of your time with Lyme, should be allocated to actually self-maintenance using tools like this. So the pads, the foot pads. If you cannot work on your legs, what I've found is a rolling pin. So it's just like, I remember, because I didn't have one because I lived by myself. I was, a bachelor, just crying across my bed all the time. But so I stole my mom's rolling pin from her house, and I remember getting on both sides of that thing. I broke like 5 of them, grinding on the muscles because I could not use my hands. Another one, by the way, for the lower legs, for Bartonella, is as opposed to just going up like this, it is going up with that pincher grip, trying to get between the bone and the actual muscle, because the Bartonella love that area right along the bone. So you have to really get in there. And even though, sometimes your eyes might be watering when you're getting it, when you're doing it, you got to do it. You just got to do it. So the next, foundationally, right, we have the hips. We have the feet and the calves, but the next foundationally for all of your pain is going to be in the hips. So when you look at whether it's chiropractic or massage therapy, the hips are actually going to guide absolutely everything. So when your hips are off, the rest of your body is going to be off. But for me, it wasn't reasonable because my muscles and your muscles are probably so tight because all the spirochetes are just drilling in there. And just like us, they poop and they pee, and there's waste in there, and they're calcified. So the next best thing was, how can I just try to get blood flow so that the toxins can move out and the good food, the nourishment, the oxygen can get in. One of my best and my go-tos was this. This looks super simple, but I swear I live by this thing. So this is just a work sock. It's probably like my dad's old work sock I had for like 20 years, like falling apart, but not 20 years, maybe 15. But so I put 2 tennis balls in here. And what is so big about that, you put them in there, you tie it up, not too tight. But the idea is that one tennis ball goes on one side of the spine, the other tennis ball goes on the other side of the spine. And you just, you do, it is best to do this on carpet or a pad. There should be a barrier between the hard floor. You don't want to do this on a hard floor. You might put your back out worse. You can't do it on a bed because it squishes down too much. So you want to do it, and you want to use tennis balls because they are going to be soft, and really just kind of roll around on them. What I do is I have a foam roller as well. I put it behind my neck because, right, we're Lymies, our necks and it just always hurt. Our shoulders and our necks just always hurt. So I would put it on my head. I would lay down on the ground, put the foam roller behind my head, and kind of put these right along my spine, and then just try to scooch up or, around and find out what areas that I could open. Once I got a little bit better with using these, and I was able to clear more toxins out of my body, I went to, this would be the next ball, and I've had this one for like 15 years. But Lyme creates restrictions. Those little guys are hiding. They're pooping and peeing and calcifying these areas, and they are also using the calcification to create those cysts. And the more toxins in these areas, basically your fascia and everything just gets stuck and wound up, so that you create these dead zones within our body, our fascia and our muscles. This ball, it is called the TP, like a TP, like the Indians lived in, massage ball. And it's at tptherapy.com. Tanya, if you can put that in there, but it is a little bit harder than a tennis ball, and it is covered with like a textured felt, which allows it to get more grip in your muscles than the tennis ball. And that is really, really important. If you don't have these, you really need to work your way up to getting those to keep the back, to keep the neck stable between your appointments. The next thing that I would recommend is, and you kind of have to do your own research on this. All of these things, Lyme is not an unsolvable problem. You really just have to get activated, and you have to spend that time every single day. And when you start saying, hey, I'm literally going to spend, an hour every single day on that physical aspect of Lyme, which no one talks about, that is when you will start getting better. And the easiest way that I found to start this was Qigong. And Qigong is spelled Qigong. And you will find exercises in Qigong that are no impact. It's not just a little bit impact. They're no impact. And it could be things just as simple as the rotation of your body. So your liver is right here, and your kidneys are right here, and all that shit, all that gunk, it's literally shit, right? It's all coming out. We need to get it out. So when you turn in Qigong, this is one of the most basic just exercises. And if you can do this, it does a lot to help your liver. And just something as simple as that, even if you can't stand, I could stand for like a minute at a time, when I was at my worst. And so, the idea though, is you could even do it in a chair, but what you have to be moving those muscles and that lymph around that liver. The liver is your best friend. You got to feed your liver, keep it open, allow those detox pathways to stay open. Once you graduate from those, your next best friend would be a foam roller. So it would be like, start with this, go to this, use the Qigong, and then start to experiment with a foam roller. And there are people that are, just way better than me at articulating and how to use these and the processes in which they've used to open up their body. And there are so many great videos on YouTube that you can just lay down quietly maybe in the living room and just kind of, it might sound crazy, but just lay down on the floor and just kind of like start rolling around. And I swear to you, it'll make a big, big difference. As you graduate up, the next one would be the mini trampoline. And some of you might be saying, well, I can't get on a mini trampoline. I couldn't either. And so where I started was on the stairs. So I would, this sounds dangerous too, but I would hold on the sides and just go up and down with my calves on the stairs. And what that's going to do is that's going to start to get some space between those cells. And it's going to do enough that it can start moving that lymph. So if you really want to, those lymph glands in the neck or in the crotch that are always swollen up, to release and to stop being swollen, you've got to move. You've got to create those channels. Not just take all the toxins in the binders. You've got to get those toxins and binders literally into the muscles, into the fascia, into those tiny little places. And then, you get, once you clear all those out, You do it over and over in layers, and then that allows to get the antibacterials into those deeper, darker, harder places. Because you got to remember, I mean, these little guys, like, they're literally drilling into there. So, right, when you take your antibiotics or your antibacterials, they're getting the top layer. Then you got to clear out that top layer of all the gunk and all the die off. And then you got to do it again. And then you got to clear it out. And then you got to do it again and keep saturating those muscles down. I'll give you just another idea here. Chiropractic. I was going to chiropractic. My neck just wouldn't stay in, and my back was just always out, and it was just incredibly painful. But I've gone to probably 20 different chiropractors, 30, probably more than that, different ones, maybe 40 or 50. But I found that 2 techniques helped me way better than anything else. The first one is called ART, and that's called active release technique. And the practitioner will go to the area that is stuck, and it's stuck. Remember, it's stuck because it's all gunked up. It's not stuck just because you're old or just because you did something to hurt it. It's stuck because there's gunk in there, and that gunk needs to come out of you. So they will touch it and they will move. Angles are very, very important. So the practitioner will know the angles from their training. They will very softly touch that angle, ask you to move in a direction, and those directions are specific as well. And you can learn these techniques eventually to do it yourself. But someone could work on a frozen shoulder, a physical therapist, for weeks or months. The next technique that I'm going to tell you, I saw a guy resolve a frozen shoulder in like 2 appointments, which is unheard of. And that is called trigenics, TRIGENICS, trigenics. And if you want to find a chiropractor that knows what he's talking about, Google chiropractic trigenics in my area. And, it'll just, you'll find another level of help there. Everything is angles. It's all about the angles. And the last one, there aren't a lot of these. You have to really be in a city to have access to it. But this is something that came out probably within the last 4 years or so. But it is an oxygen bath. And the oxygen baths, you have to Google it and find it. But there's one in Pittsburgh where I am, and you go in and it's this water infused with oxygen, and it is just amazing. Antonio Brown, love him or hate him, he is one of the greatest receivers ever in professional football, and he used to call it holy water when I would see him in there. But all right, I know that was a lot. Thank you very much for listening.